Welcome back to the Verbal Outpost on Radio Dawn 107.6 FM. As always, I'm your host for today, Hamza. And as always, I've got my usual wingman in the studio with me today, Shafiq. Shafiq, do you want to give salam?
Assalamu alaikum. How's it going?
It's always good to test the mics and the sound are working as well. How are you doing anyway? Everything good?
Yeah, all right, alhamdulillah. It's a shame the AC isn't working because it's still so hot.
It is pretty warm in here, isn't it? We can't open the windows because it's a soundproofed room. So you're not going to hear any of the sound, but it is about 100 degrees. Yeah, it's warm, very warm. And we've got the cameras on now as well. So if you start seeing the beads of sweat trickling down our face, we're doing it for everyone listening out there. Going through the struggle for all of you. As always, you can join in the conversation today. So the two numbers are 0115 8411 800. Other number is 0115 8411 900. And actually, you can also WhatsApp as well. Have we got the WhatsApp set up?
I haven't.
Give me
I have no idea. We'll have to have a look. It was mentioned that WhatsApp is set up, but we've never really looked into using it yet.
Bear with me, because I think I know exactly what I'm doing. It was here. I take that back. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. There's a link here somewhere.
So let's just leave it.
Leave it. That's fine. If you do want to make a comment, you got to call in. You can't drop us a message. That's fine. No worries. We'll get that sorted next time, inshallah. So we're going to start on a little bit of a sad note. Yeah. Probably don't need to explain, but I'm talking about the recent tragic events on the 13th of June on Tuesday. As a regular day, we woke up and the first thing we woke up to was a number of roads that were closed. The usual roads that we take to get into work, drop the kids off, a lot of them were closed. And unfortunately, there's a man named, in fact, I'm probably not even going to mention the man's name, and that's just because I don't think it needs mentioning. It's kind of like the terrorist, the mosque shooter in New Zealand, the Prime Minister at the time, Jacinda Ardern. She said, I'm not even going to mention his name because I don't think he deserves that notoriety. So there's a man who went around Nottingham and he randomly killed 3 people, innocent victims, and then attempted to run over a number more. So I think it's around between 3 and 6. There's a number of other people he attempted to run over in city centre. And this is Nottingham. It's not the safest place, but you don't really get homicides and incidents on that level, do you? It was quite a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, it was a surprise. I think it shocked everyone when they sort of heard about it and stuff. So, yeah, I think everyone was sort of caught off guard. Everyone started sending WhatsApp messages to each other, and, you know, there was a lot of rumours going around at the time. Nothing was really confirmed in the media. They just said there's an incident that happened. And I remember my wife was in the city centre at the time. She was going into work. All the trams stopped. There was no tram service into the city centre. And she messaged me saying that, look, there's been an incident. So the trams aren't running and whatnot. And I was like, all right, okay. So I tried to look into what happened, and there was some sort of a link people were making to the trams and what happened with the people getting killed. And apparently there was a tram that toppled over, or this is what I was hearing. This is on WhatsApp. The tram toppled over. They're not running. A car has drove into a tram. These are the things I was hearing at the time, first thing in the morning.
And just to, there was a lot of stuff floating around. I remember speaking to someone, and they were, so people knew that it was a stabbing by that point, by around 9:30. So people knew that apparently, some
that's right,
dude who's gone around, he's gone to stab people. But actually, you know what? It was a tragic incident. I actually want to start with remembering the 3 people, you know, that the victims, the people that lost their lives. And and their names and the ages, and I just want to just spend a few hours just going over what that would have been like. And it could have been any of us. That's the honest truth is, it could have been any of us. This was round the corner from many of us.
Yep.
Okay, it happened in a few different locations. So if you're within a couple of miles of city centre, it happened on your door. Forget a couple of miles. If it happened within 5 miles of city centre, it was on your doorstep. This is very close to home. So the first two were a couple of students. It was Barnaby Webber and Grace Kumar. They were both a couple of students at University of Nottingham. 19 years old.
That's right, yeah, first year.
First year. They just finished their first year. They were celebrating, apparently.
That's right.
And that's when it happened. It's tragic because, I mean, these are just kids. They're just a few years older. Okay, but being parents now, they're just a few years older than your own kids.
Yeah.
And then the third victim was Ian Coates. Ian Coates was 65 and he was a caretaker at Huntingdon Primary School. And I've seen Ian Coates around.
But have you?
I have. And it was, honestly, it was terrible, you know, having seen him around. My kids used to go to that school, so they know of him as well. They know of him.
So that must have hit home a little bit more for them because they're sort of a lot more familiar.
He did. And then the stories came out afterwards. The positive stories, you know, from his children. They talked about, and actually, not even his children. His children typically speak highly of their parents.
Yeah.
But these are people from the community. I think there's somebody who opened up an angling shop, a fishing shop.
They did, yeah. I read that as well, yeah.
I don't have the person's name, but he opened a fishing shop.
And he used to take people out, didn't he? Fishing and stuff like that. Even people who weren't able or something like that. There was some people that who were disadvantaged or whatever. He would take them out, let them have a go at fishing and teach them some skills. And, you know, they were saying, I think someone described it as very much like a father figure as well. So it was quite good to hear.
One of the nicest things that I heard was so there was a situation where he wanted to go and take some of the kids out. He wanted to set up like an after-school club. But the school couldn't do it for a number of reasons. May have been funding or whatever. They couldn't do it. So he said, look, don't worry, I'll sort it out. I'll pay for it out of my own pocket. And I was like, wow, you know, if you think of like in this day and age, and yes, that's not... You don't get that very often. And when you get somebody, I think people that do that, they should be treasured. I think it's a very valuable thing, particularly in this day and age, where people will actually pay out their own pocket to benefit other people.
Definitely.
Right?
Especially working in a school where, you know, there's all these teacher strikes, things like that happening. So staff, I know it's mainly the teachers that are striking, but even the support staff, you know, they can't be making a lot of money for them to be using their own funds to pay for things. That's definitely admirable. Yeah. You know, when they haven't got much to begin with. Yeah.
And I remember my kids' teachers as well. I've asked them in the past when they've talked about, you know, we've had to do X, Y, Z, and I thought, okay, all right, that's interesting. So where did you get it from? Oh, well, you know, we ended up having to go to Asda because we couldn't get it from anywhere. Oh, okay, so who paid for it? And they said, well, actually, we paid for it out of our own pockets. I've always been really impressed by that. You know, it's quite easy to, you know, things like the expenses scandal. And if you're in a white-collar job, you do your expenses and you claim absolutely everything you can. And just with, you know, with doing any charity, you just kind of throw money at it rather than actually you throw money at it. Plus, you do a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's quite an admirable thing. So that was a very nice thing that I heard about Ian Coates. From people around him, and it made me think. I mean, it's Father's Day today, right?
It is. That's something I was thinking about on the way here. I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, it's Father's Day. You know, you got two students who would probably be celebrating Father's Day with their dads right now. You know, the dads are sitting there, you know, devastated, mourning. The kids, that's not something, you know, someone wants to be doing on Father's Day. And then you got obviously Ian Coates, who would probably be celebrating right now. You know, the family all getting around, especially with his age and stuff. It's going to be a very sad day today.
Yeah. So thoughts and condolences go out to the families, to to those that have lost their lives, those that were impacted, those that were hurt and injured, who have been traumatized, who were run over. It's an incredibly sad thing. It's an incredibly dark day for the city of Nottingham. One thing that really impressed me was how the city came together. That did slightly surprise me, because I remember, with the Manchester Arena attacks, Manchester really came together, and that was quite impressive. And I remember thinking, I wonder what would happen in Nottingham. And I remember thinking, that's not going to happen. People hate each other a little bit. There's a bit too much hate, and there's a bit too much blaming of other people that look different. So I don't think that would happen. I was pleasantly surprised. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that is, because it was so random and they were completely in this. It wasn't like because, as I said, with the WhatsApp messages that would go around, I remember originally everyone saying it's gang related. And it feels gang related, and some people died. I don't know if the city would come together as much, but with this being such a random attack on 2 innocent students and, a caretaker, I think that's hit home for a lot of people. It's like, look, as you said, this could be anyone. This could have been us that injured. I think that's what it is. I think everyone could relate to that, and that's why the city could get together.
Because, the students were celebrating finishing their first year. Ian Coates, he was leaving. He was getting ready for work in the morning. So just going about his daily routine, and lots of people got up shortly afterwards, and they're off to work or dropping the kids off, isn't it? It could have been any of us, because it appears there's no motive. It appears there's mental health. We'll come on to some of the lessons, because if we don't learn lessons from some of these things, or just take some wisdom away, history has a nasty way of repeating itself if we don't learn from it.
So point, yeah.
I feel like we should take some lessons away, whilst at the same time remembering some of the, remembering the people as well that were victims of this, but at the same time taking some lessons away. So we'll come on to that a little bit later on. Life can be taken away at any point, isn't it? And ultimately, it depends on what we left behind. And we've already talked about Ian. We've talked about how he left. There's these stories about people, from people that have talked about him in an incredibly positive light. If somebody dies in the community, you get people. It's fascinating. I lost my mum about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's fascinating the amount of people that will tell you stories that you had no idea about.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got no idea. Oh, okay, I didn't realise that. So the amount of stories that you hear of the good deeds, the good things that particular person did after they've gone. And I think we had Faisal Amjad on here a few weeks ago, and he talked about the legacy that we leave behind. And he talked about having a vision in life. And then we talked a little bit about Stephen Covey and his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And a lot of it is about the legacy that we leave behind. What are we going to leave behind? Ultimately, it's just our good deeds. It's the good that we did, how we benefited other people. And Muhammad Ali's got this beautiful quote. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was, did I mention it a couple of weeks ago? Don't know whether...
Might have done.
It's so he said that the entrance into paradise, service to other people is the rent that we pay for the afterlife, for paradise in the afterlife. Okay. So service to other people. Do you know what? I'm just going to pull it up very quickly.
You pull it up. And I was going to say that that comment you made about hearing stories from other people, things you didn't even know about, and you hear about after, someone's passing. It's like other people have this image of a person. You know what I mean? So you might have, like, if it was your parent that passed away, you've got this image like, they're my dad, they're my mum. But to other people, they're these completely different people, and inshallah they're positive people, like, and they've got this other image of them where you might think about all your faults that you have, but this other person just sees the best in you, and that they've only got good things to say about you. They got all these stories about how amazing they are, how supportive you are, how much you've helped them, and it's like it's amazing how people see you, and you never really know until later on, because not everyone talks about this sort of stuff. You never really know how much you've helped people, the people that are around you, just by as you said, leaving some sort of a legacy by trying to do good things, being kind to the people around you, and then that's it. They just create this image of you and think, you know what, this is a good person. This person's helped me.
Yeah, I was reading something this morning, and it was just saying that, have you noticed how people express themselves in relation to other people the most? It's the most intense if you see relationships at the airport when somebody's leaving.
Oh, okay.
Or at the graveyard after somebody's died. And you get this... You may have had this relationship for however long, but then it reaches a bit of a climax when the person's leaving for, it could be they're going for a couple of months or something. They go in Bangladesh or Pakistan for a couple of months, which is an average holiday. But you get this intensity when the person leaves, and the post was just saying that we don't express that enough when we have the person. We kind of take advantage of the people that we have around us when they're there, and we only realize the joy, the benefits, the goodness of that person once they've left, and that's quite sad.
That is quite sad,
and we're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. So I do think there's a point there about being a bit more appreciative of the people around us and just valuing them a little bit more. Life is precious. It's short. It can end at any point.
A lot to reflect on, isn't it?
Yeah. In terms of the community, there was one thing, right? So, there was the vigil that took place.
There was two.
Two?
So there was one at the University of Nottingham.
Okay.
And then they did one at the
Market Square.
Yeah, Market Square.
So in city centre, so Market Square, I've got to be completely honest, right? I didn't go to that. I was actually busy that evening. I was busy, but I did think to myself, there was a moment where I thought, is there going to be any Islamophobia at the vigil, right? And I know it's a little bit of a strange way to look at it, okay, because it's an incredibly tragic thing. And I thought, is there going to be any issue with outwardly appearing Muslims being at the vigil? And are we going to get any slack? I was clearly wrong. I was 100% wrong. I'll put my hands up and say that. I was wrong. But that thought did pop into my head. And I thought that because I thought, is there a little bit of tension? Is there going to be some, like, oh yeah, as a Muslim that did it? And hey, listen, man, there were some media outlets that were just foaming at the mouth, waiting, dying, looking to push it onto somebody, some way to say, basically, it's somebody that looks different. That's not one of us. And the wording in the media has just been terrible. Some West African immigrant, some migrant. And so I was a little bit on edge. I thought, are we going to get abused for turning up, and are we going to get blamed for it? So I did have that thought pop into my head. I don't know whether you had it. I was wrong. I'll put my hands up and I'll say I was wrong. And that wasn't the case.
No, to be fair, I had a similar thought, not to do with in terms of going to the vigil, but I kind of thought, is it eventually going to come out that, look, he was a Muslim? And it didn't help, with the Central Terrorism Unit? So they were still hanging around for a while, and they were questioning the murderer, the killer, for a while as well. So I was kind of thinking, okay, why are they questioning him for so long? Why is the Central Terrorism Unit still hanging around? Is it eventually going to lead to, look, it was some sort of terrorist attack or something like that? And especially because they didn't release his name, no one knew anything about him for a good while. It's only recently, in the last couple of days, that they released that information about who he was. So it was all still a bit of a mystery as to who he is and his background.
I actually thought that was good. It's good they delayed that, because to an extent it's irrelevant. To an extent, I mean, what's happened has happened. We can, in a few weeks' time, look back at what were the causes of it and how can we prevent it from happening. But I'm glad they didn't just release everything and say it was. It's lazy. it's lazy just to say, oh, it's terrorism, because I mean, it kind of was terrorism and it wasn't terrorism.
Yeah.
It was terrorism because somebody's gone around killing innocent people, but apparently it's not terrorism for some reason. So I don't know. It's a little bit strange. Right, we're just going to cut to a quick break. We'll be back shortly. Don't go anywhere. Radio Dawn 107.6 FM. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're listening to the Verbal Outpost. You have myself, Hamza, and Shafiq on air today. We've been talking about the tragic set of incidents that have taken place in Nottingham a few days ago on Tuesday, 13th of June. And we've just been talking about the sadness of it, how tragic it's been, and hopefully we can take some lessons away for all of us. And I think first and foremost, Shafiq, we're talking about the legacy and the good actions and the good things that we do. That's all that gets left behind. People speaking good about us, having good memories of us, is what we leave behind. The money, the fame, the status, a lot of that all goes with you. But the good things you did for other people are remembered. I did mention that Muhammad Ali quote. I've got it word for word. The service you do for others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. That's Muhammad Ali. So the service you do for others is the rent that you pay for your room here on earth. So Muhammad Ali is saying it's almost incumbent, we're almost required to do some service towards others. And I know, I believe certain Grace Kumar, she was training to be a doctor, so she was studying medicine at university. So there's an element of helping people there as well. And then I believe, so I know both Barnaby and Grace, they were both involved with a lot of sport. So Grace,
hockey, right,
was doing hockey, and Barnaby, he was involved in cricket. So I think he'd just been selected for the university team. I believe he was doing some charity work as well with a food bank. So these are the things that get left behind, the good that we did for other people. So a lesson there, a reminder for all of us just to appreciate the people around us and strive to do good deeds and good things for other people. And then we talked a little bit about the vigil that took place. There's been two vigils you mentioned. So there's one at University of Nottingham. There's one in Nottingham City Centre, Market Square. And I was mentioning just before we went to the break that I was a little bit, I've got to be honest, I was a bit worried about the atmosphere, and I was a bit worried that it would be blamed, that there'd be a bit of a tense environment against anyone or anything that looks like they're Muslim. And there's been incidents in the past where there's been a spike in Islamophobia and hate crimes against Muslims. So I was a little bit on edge, and I thought, is this going to cause a bit of an issue? I was, like I said it before and I'll say it again, I was completely 100% wrong. And I've seen the pictures and the videos of the vigil. There's a lot of Muslims there, and it was really nice to see. And that was something that I'm happy to be corrected if I've got it wrong, and I did absolutely get that wrong. I don't know what it was like for you. We talked a little bit about sort of the sequence of events as well, because it was, all right, counter-terrorism, police are now getting involved. And man, you should have seen, remember GB News, oh gosh, I saw like a 2-3 minute clip, and it was basically, right, yeah, it's all these migrants, it's all these foreigners that are coming in, and we believe there's a link to terrorism. And I thought, right,
they went straight for it.
they went straight for the jugular, they did. And I remember saying to myself, that, look, I live around the area. If I do come across any journalists, if they're GB News, I will tell them to go and do one. I'll say to them, get lost, get out of here. So there was that sort of sequence of events that did take place afterwards. I don't know what it was like for you, or whether you felt it was a little bit tense. Thankfully it wasn't, and the community really came together. But I don't know whether you went on a bit of a journey.
No, as I said, like I said, I had the thoughts. I was waiting for them to reveal, obviously, who it is and what his motive was. And even now, we still don't know what the motive was. It just appears to be a random attack. So, I mean, I guess you could have a bit of a sigh of relief knowing that it was just a random attack and it wasn't linked to Islam or to Muslims or anything like that, because that's what appears. The media sort of jump on that sort of stuff quite quickly. And alhamdulillah, I mean, that sense, it wasn't. So it helps the community get together and mourn, and hopefully something positive can come out of it.
Because it is a loss for everyone, isn't it? Is the truth.
Yeah.
The truth is it's a loss for everyone.
And it'll have a knock-on effect in a number of different ways as well, because university institutions, they might change safety protocols and things like that. The police, I don't know if they'll get more funding to help police. Right now, I know, people don't have a lot of good to say, unfortunately, about the police, but if it helps Nottingham get a bit more funding in helping to make it a little bit safer, that might be a good thing. So a lot of changes could potentially happen after an event like this, hopefully positive changes, and to protect students, because obviously this is a student city as well. So we rely on students coming into the city. So if for whatever reason they don't feel safe anymore, that'll become an issue. So that they will need to focus on that a little bit, and to ensure that, people know, Nottingham is a safe city. Students can come here. We've got 2 universities here.
I mean, let's be honest, it's not very safe though, is it?
So, depends. I mean, I've lived here all my life. I've never really come across any people talk about stabbings and gunshots and people getting hurt and stuff. I've never really seen it myself. I live in Forest Fields as well. It's not a nice area to be living in, but I'm sort of in the heart of the city centre, and it's been all right. Like I said, I think if you mind your own business, generally you're fine. Unfortunately for these 2 students who were minding their own business, they were literally just coming home that night, and it was, which is why it was a random attack.
Just a case of wrong place, wrong time, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Just unlucky. Let's talk about knife crime then, because there's 2 things. So there's 2 things that we do know, well, 1.5 kind of. So we know it was using a knife. It wasn't using a gun. Okay, and we've talked about gun crime in the past, and we've talked about we talked about some of the stats around the use of guns in the UK, and it was shockingly high, but as a proportion of other weapons, it was quite low. I think it sits around 13. In fact, I think I've even got the number here. No, I don't have the number.
Oh.
It was about 13% gun crime, but knife crime was about half of it.
But there's an explanation for that, though, isn't it? Compared to, let's say, if we compared ourselves to the States or something. Are you talking about Nottingham in general or the UK?
No, I'm talking about the UK in general.
Okay.
No, I'm not comparing it to the States, because that's there's some obvious stuff.
Yeah, but just like gun crime, for example, obviously it's a lot more difficult to have guns here in the UK, whereas knives are a lot easier to get a hold of, isn't it? So that would explain why knife crime's a lot higher. If you're upset and angry with someone, it's a lot easier to go grab a knife. It seems as easy as in America to get a gun. You just walk into the shop and pick one up.
I think there's one bit that's about the accessibility of it. It's how easily can you access it.
Yeah.
But I think the key bit is why are people wanting to hurt other people? I think that's where we've got a bit of an issue. Because if somebody's going to hurt someone, they're going to find a weapon, whether it's a knife, bat, gun, whatever it is.
Cricket bat.
Yeah, cricket bat. The amount of cars with cricket bats in the boot. But they're going to find a weapon. There's going to be a weapon that's used. But in terms of knives being used, and they've kind of been glamorized. Let's just go through the stats as well.
Go on then.
Okay. So according to the ONS, there were 45,000 knife-related crimes, knife and offensive weapon offences recorded in England and Wales in the year ending September 22. But the important thing, I mean, that's just an abstract number at the moment, but the important bit is it's an increase of 21% from the previous year. And the ONS also reports that the number of people killed with a knife in England and Wales in 2021 to 22 was the highest on record for 76 years.
Okay.
So we're seeing knives are being used much more frequently. Okay, there's the whole thing about accessibility. Okay, so there is that, but a lot of people are being killed as a result of it, and it's having a huge impact on society as a whole. A lot of young people are losing their lives as a result of it. I mean, in this incident, again, it was knives, but I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know how the government is going to get that under control, because it's causing a major issue now.
See, as you said, it's not just the access, it's why are people picking up a knife and then attacking someone, isn't it? So how do you control that? You can't control that. People get angry with each other all the time. All it takes is one person to have a bit of a screw loose to think, you know what, I'm going to kill this guy, and go grab a knife from the kitchen and deal with it.
We had Javed Khalik on here last week, and he talked about the need to... So he talked about raising self-esteem, about helping young people, boys and girls, to become more confident, raise their self-esteem, and just make them more rounded, capable individuals by doing sport, by doing some either combat sport, something physical, something that requires a level of aggression, some competition, some competitiveness, and just a direction at the end of it. Yeah, just something where you're putting your energy. And I think, so I'm not saying that's the solution to all the problems, but I believe that resolves some of the issues, with an absence of having strong role models or figures in the community, or a lot of children not having a not having a father. There's no strong male presence in their lives.
Yeah.
Then you throw poverty on top of that. Then you throw racism, discrimination, low rates of literacy, numeracy, and you throw all these things in there, and then you get a situation where you've got a young male or a female, in their teens. It's not always a teenager, but you get a young person who's listening. What's that music called? Is it drill music?
Drill music.
Drill.
Trap.
Drill or trap? I don't know. Or both. That type of music where they're talking about, I killed this person, I stabbed this person, I did this, I did that, boasting about their crimes in their music. But you then get stupidity. We look at it as adults now, as grown adults, as parents, and you just get stupidity like that. You get young lads that behave like that because there's this like false bravado and this macho-ness, and there's nothing behind it. They're just innocent little, well, not innocent, but they're just kids that are a bit naive. They're a bit lost.
And thinking about how we can help sort of people like that is, I've heard recently a lot of funding keeps getting cut from like community projects, community centres who were usually will be out there hosting, football clubs and, any martial arts clubs, just things like that. Even Javed Khalik, he faced it, didn't he? He was told, the centre that he was running, his place was all funded through like charitable funds and things like that. But, once that funding gets cut, that's it. You're going to be struggling to continue having events like that where you're helping people out on the streets, give them something else to do. Obviously, if they've got nothing to do, they're going to be out making friends with God knows who, and that's it. They just fall down that trap of gang culture and whatnot. And there's, as you said, no male role model or anyone to help with the discipline side of things.
And we've spoken about this before as well, isn't it? Just like the role of masculinity. And we're not talking about this like, and this is what slightly frustrates me. This bravado. I don't like bravado. Yeah, this false bravado is that a man, you can tell how low a man's or even a woman as well, their self-esteem, you can tell how low it is based on how loud they shout, right? Or how much they try and show how tough they are or strong they are. Normally works the other way. Yeah, that shows how low their self-esteem is. So I do think it's multifaceted. There's a number of issues for it, I'm sure there's charities that work in this space and they know it inside out. I'm sure we could ask ChatGPT or Bard and they'd give us a fantastic response. But we're just kind of talking based on our experience. I do believe there's a level of masculinity has kind of gone out the window as well. right? There's bits of it that have been eroded, and that's confused a lot of young boys that are now growing up and are a little bit confused. Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons you get this generation of young people that are just lost, man. They're misguided, and it just doesn't seem to be improving. The UK is getting worse and worse, man.
And the chances of another stabbing happening, because it's one of the things I was thinking about when we were coming in today, is that, look, it's big news this week, but something will happen maybe next week, and that's it. We're not talking about Nottingham now, some other city, because we've had attacks like this before, haven't we? And where was it? There was somewhere else where someone went round, and I can't remember if it was with a knife or a gun here in the UK, went around going around killing quite a few people. We spoke about it on the radio show.
We talked about it. It was in, wasn't it in Brighton? I think it was Brighton. It was in the south.
Yeah, I think it was down south somewhere. But do you know what I mean? Like that wasn't too long ago, maybe a year ago, just over a year ago, something like that. But people just move on, and that's it. Because something else happens. And I always did wonder that, look, how much, unless you've directly been affected, how much time are we spending discussing it, dealing with it? You know, people, these families are going to be mourning for the rest of their life, whereas the community, they get together this one time, they've done this vigil, and that's it. They'll move on because something else is happening, whatnot. I do worry how much of an impact these things actually have, because it's all about the response, isn't it? Now, if your response is only, let's have a vigil, let's do this, you need to do more than that. I think personally anyway. We need to know that, look, this isn't going to happen again, or at least attempt to try put measures in place where it doesn't happen again.
The other thing is around mental health, because apparently, I don't know whether it's 100%, and that's why I said we know one and a half things. We know he used a knife, and we suspect, I don't know whether it's 100% confirmed, he's got mental health issues. So there is this thing around a lot of funding from mental health. You've just talked about from extracurricular activities, community activities, funding's being pulled, but also from mental health. So you've basically got these young people who have got nothing to do, who are a little bit lost. Some of them will naturally, just because of probability, some of them are naturally going to have mental health issues. What happens when you then you put that formula together? It's supposed to disaster, man.
It does,
doesn't it?
I mean, and it's crazy to think the mental health thing's become a big thing now, and I do wonder, because they say, oh yeah, it wasn't something that was recognized so much, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but did we have as big a problem with mental health back then? Or is it a case that we've got a bigger problem now because of other outside influences, social media, whatnot, pressures from society are a bit higher now, and that's why mental health has become a big thing. Funding being cut from community centres, so people have less to do, so that what they do is sit around all day watching videos on YouTube and stuff, and then comparing their life to theirs, and that's it. It'll put that pressure on you, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Where before you would be in a smaller community and it would just be your friend, but now the internet's just opened up this massive space for you, where now you're just speaking to people from other parts of the world, and you're comparing yourself to them and their lifestyle and whatnot. It's just going to cause depression.
So I mean, there's mental health is a spectrum, isn't it? Right? Those extreme cases of things like schizophrenia and bipolar, they've always been around. Some people have always, there's always been a percentage of the population, right? A small minority, so it's always been there. Whether that bit of the spectrum has increased, I don't know. Whether that has, I'm pretty certain, we don't have any stats here, but I'm pretty certain the opposite end of it, which is, I'm a little bit down today, I can't go into work. I'm not knocking that at all, but I'm just saying the other end of the spectrum, which isn't as severe as that, I do believe that has increased as a result of the things that you mentioned. So like you said, you talked about, do we just do a video and then that's the end of it, or do we take some lessons away?
Yeah.
Do we do something a little bit differently? And what would that different look like? Is it putting more money into community projects, or putting money into mental health services in the UK? I honestly don't know, but I think that'd be a good starting point.
Maybe we can bring someone in who can help, discuss these things with them.
And then the thing is, where do you get the money from? Someone's got to pay for it, doesn't it? Then the other thing as well, so I mean, the actual the person who went round, and I mentioned at the beginning of the show as well. I didn't really want to mention the person's name because I don't. If the person did do it for notoriety, like the dude in New Zealand, whose name I don't even remember, that waste of space in New Zealand, who went and shot up a mosque. I don't know the guy's name, so we're not going to mention the guy's name here, but he was a student at University of Nottingham just a few months ago, just a year ago, in 2022, in I think it was chemical engineering or something. Which
I know he got a master's. It was a master's in engineering, master's in engineering. And it's not like he's just recently come to the country either. He's been here for 10 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And his family are quite well known in Wales, which is where his family are from. So I think that's another surprise that was for me, is that I just assumed, a guy black, he's probably just got to this country, an immigrant.
But completely wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, completely wrong. And we've spoken about immigrants before, haven't we? About, this image that people have of them.
Yep. And actually, on the same day or the day before, day after, there were 500. It's such a horrible term, man, migrants. But the 500 people on a boat that capsized. This, including women and children. There's children drowned at sea. So they've disappeared. So this is roughly on the same day, and it really makes my heart sink. I mean, I'm pretty thick-skinned, but to see innocent people lose their lives the same way that we're expressing our sorrow over the lives lost here in Nottingham, it just upsets me when people don't feel the same sense of sorrow when it's happening elsewhere. And it fills me with a lot of sadness that sort of migrants, right, in air quotes, are perceived as less than human. They're considered subhuman. Have they been described by politicians as a swarm coming into Europe? So they've been described as animals that are just trying to come here, take our money, take our benefits, take our women, and that's all they're trying to do.
The reality is completely different as well. You've got countries who have gone over there and taken all their resources and their wealth, left them with nothing, and now all they're trying to do is make a better life for themselves and their family, just like our parents did when they came here.
Yeah. I mean, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, they were colonized for how many years? 100 years? 150 years? Colonized by Britain. So it's you can't expect to go to another country and go and bomb it and then not expect some of them to come back with you or want to come back with you because they've got nothing left in their country. So on roughly the same day that did happen as well. There was a migrant boat. So coming back to your point as well around that perception that was created that this is another one of those dodgy migrants that's just come off the boat and he's now trying to stab people. Actually, no, he wasn't born here, but he was raised here. The media mentioned that his father, I think, or his uncle or something, or grandfather is a church.
Oh right, yeah. Pastor or something like that. Is that what?
Yeah.
Yeah, there might have been some mention of that. Because I think they are from quite a religious background because they're quite involved with the church in Wales.
Yeah,
from what I've read.
But that's all irrelevant. It doesn't matter. I mean, the truth is, it doesn't matter whether his dad's, pastor or whether he's not. It's irrelevant. His Christianity has nothing to do with it. His skin color has nothing to do with it. Right? His citizenship has nothing to do with what he did. So it's all these things are irrelevant. It's somebody. What is relevant is that he's got mental health issues, and somehow whenever it's terrorism related, they can never have a mental health issue, even though a lot of times you've got to be a little bit nutty. There's got to be a few screws loose if you're going to go and do something like that. But
it's when they start doing profiling, isn't it? That's why, and then they try to build up this image of what a particular person might be like if they're carrying out these attacks. And that's where it comes down to. So when they see a migrant, they think, okay, you know what, he might be linked to this religion,
Well, I mean, this was coming off the back of France as well a couple of weeks ago.
Someone went around, didn't they?
Yeah, in a park. I mean, do you really think anyone is going to be sane? Do you think they're going to be mentally sound, mentally stable if they're going in a park and stabbing children? Like, it's how would that thought even come into your head unless you've got some voices telling you to go and do something? Unless there's something not right up here. This is the bit that I don't get. It's a very lazy explanation. Just throw it down to terrorism.
Because I can't remember what country he came from, but
Syria.
Yeah, Syria. Yeah. Look at what's happening in Syria. Obviously, someone's going to have mental, your houses are being destroyed. You've probably lost family members. All of this stuff will have an impact. Some people can deal with it better than others, but others obviously can't, and it will have a toll on some people. Some people, those mental issues may have been there from the very beginning, but for other people, when you go through such tragedy like that, it is going to have an impact on your life in some form or another, and you might, all that anger that you've got, pent up in down there, you go berserk, won't you? And then that's, for all we know, that's what's happened in France.
I mean, not to make excuses for him, but for anyone to do that, there's got to be something not quite functioning properly up there. That's not somebody with a sound mind. So, again, I mean, it's just sad. I don't know how that problem gets dealt with, the mental health problem. But it's... whether it's more funding, where does that money come from? I don't know. And then the extent of it as well. Because like I said, it's quite a big spectrum. We've got the sort of side of it, which is, I don't really feel like going to work today. I feel a little bit down. I've got blues, Monday morning blues. I think everyone feels that. But you've got that end of it, and then you've got the opposite end, which is people hearing voices in their heads, people with severe depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, and you don't know what you're going to get. So it's quite a big spectrum. Any other thoughts, any other reflections?
I mean, I was trying to think about safety because you mentioned about you mentioned about Nottingham being safe and whatnot, and
I said it's not very safe.
Yeah, it's not.
You said it. It's all right if you mind your own business.
I just think I think every city's got their problems.
Agreed.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And I think every city, Islamically, we have to look at any time we can die, right? You know what I mean? It can be unfortunately from knife crime, but it could be you walk across the road and you get hit by a car. Anything can happen. Just one day you can just drop dead. So all you need to do, all I think people should be doing is just look, what can I do to be as safe as possible? For Muslims, reading their du'as, tying the camel, that hadith about tying the camel and whatnot. You know what I mean? Just take precautions, stay as safe as possible, and whatever happens is written for you, isn't it, at the end of the day? Because I had someone telling me, it's so unsafe now in Nottingham, look at this, look at that. I was like, look, you can't panic. You can't go into oh my gosh, I need to get out of here right now because of one incident.
Statistically, you're more likely to get into an accident and probably die from that, in a car accident, and die from that. So we have got a call.
Oh, we're coming to the end of the show, though.
We've got about 2 minutes, so if we can figure out how to work the telephone, I think, if I can figure it out. Hello.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam. That's a familiar voice. How are you, Auntie?
I'm fine, thank you. And how are you all?
Alhamdulillah, we're doing really good.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. I'm listening to your program, very interesting. What happened in Nottingham, really bad. I had so many calls from my relation. Are you all right? They're all worried. They don't know where it happened.
Yeah.
It was worldwide news, wasn't it? It was all over. It wasn't just the local news.
So sad in Nottingham, really sad, very sad. Allah रहम करे, क्या करे अभी? मुश्किल आ जाती है तो आ जाती है. That's it. Allah मुश्किल को आसान करे. And nice to listen to you. Very nice speaking, and listening is so nice. They wanted to disturb you at all, but I said, okay, I'll say hello.
Thank you very much, Auntie. You're always welcome. And Ameen to your beautiful du'as as well.
Ameen, Ameen. and keep it up your program. I hope we're listening you every fortnight.
Inshallah.
And advance, I think, will be Eid Mubarak.
That's right. Yeah,
We'll find out this evening.
It was, yes, we did 1 weekend. So everybody had a nice, good Eid Mubarak.
Have a barak to you and your family also.
Okay, yes, thank you so much, and all the best. Okay.
Ameen. Allahumma ameen. Please remember us in your du'as as well, please, Auntie.
Ameen.
Thank you.
Okay, Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Assalam. Good. Right, we've got about 30 seconds left. Always a pleasure getting a phone call from Auntie, isn't it? But yeah, beautiful du'as. Yeah. And beautiful dua for everyone as well. So that is us signing off. You've been listening to the Verbal Outpost. We've been talking about the unfortunate, tragic set of incidents that took place over the past week. Just offering condolences to the families, to the victims, and just trying to take some lessons away that we can take forward and hopefully reduce some of these from happening in future. We can try and do we can try and make that little bit of difference that we possibly can. But that is us signing off for this week. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.